After serving 23 years as a lighthouse keeper, the Lizard Lighthouse was destined to be my last ever lighthouse. So my posting as a lighthouse keeper was from the 23rd of January 1996 till my redundancy caught up with me on the 12th of November 1997. Trinity House, the lighthouse service I worked for, were in full flow of automating all their lighthouses as they suddenly had the technology to complete it all, and that meant the end of the lighthouse keeper. So on Tuesday the 23rd of January 1996 I said goodbye to my children and my wife and set off in the car down towards the Lizard. I arrived at 10 p.m. at night in a more or less a snow blizzard. I was met by Fred Rosewell, principal keeper, and he told me, contrary to what I'd been told on the phone the day before, my watch wasn't on tomorrow afternoon, but I was now on watch at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I had a quick chat and then shot off to bed to get some sort of shut-eye before getting up at 4 a.m. So up and on watch at 4 a.m, bleary-eyed because I didn't get much kip. Fred gave me a quick refresher, a very quick refresher on how to do the weather forecasting. I'd been here before doing different duties, so it was a quick refresher. And then I was in at the deep end, as it were. Luckily there was no fog, and I put the light out about 8 a.m. Once it was stopped, I then gave it a clean down and do all the normal stuff that lighthouse keepers do. And then later on, Fred came over and gave me a full grounding on how to start the foghorn. Down to the engine room. The engine room contains 3 Gardner LW4 engines with Revel compressors, 1 Lister Petter standby diesel generator, 1 redundant Gardner LW4 which was the standby generator, 1 Magneto, a museum piece in use here 1881 to 1950, 1 Blackstone engine, museum piece from St Anne's Lighthouse. This station had 2 engines of this type, each driving a Revel QR 7.5 inch times 5 inch air compressor. The compressed air operated the twin high-low note fog signal, the siren. There's also 1 hand-operated fire pump, which is a museum piece, plus the siren, foghorn and the controls. Off to the left, as you enter the engine room, is the watch room, where we did our watches and sent weather to the Met Office and received calls from the Coast Guard for the weather also. The weather for the Met Office you do is a wet and dry bulb temperatures housed in a Stevenson screen outside on the lawn. You do the wind speed and direction, past and present weather, visibility and cloud type and height. Also once a day you give max and min for the day. Starting at 3 a.m, 6 a.m, 7 a.m, 9 a.m, 10 a.m, 1 p.m, 4 p.m, 7 p.m, 10 p.m, and finally the next one's at midnight, and then it all starts again. And the weather is all done on a tiny little Met Office computer. Also, as stated, the phone rings at 7 and midday when the Coast Guard phones in for the weather. This station also used to monitor the longships the Wolf Rock, Round Island, Seven Stones light vessel, and St Anthony's. They were transferred, however, to Central Monitoring in Harwich in June 1995. The engine room does look very daunting, and when you get shown how to work the foghorn, to start with, that is extremely daunting, but you soon get used to it. And I used to keep like a little idiot book, I called it, where I jotted everything down, so I always had notes just in case, but luckily I soon got the hang of it all. There was an official way of starting the foghorn, but we all had our little deviations that worked just as well. But the official version is 1. Open the 3 blue painted valves on chosen engine. 2. Flick over lever and press the starter button. That's after putting your solenoid in. 3. Check water is running through the system. That's outside. 4. Open larger valve wheels on the air tanks. 5. Engage the clutch on the engine. 6. Close down the brass screws. 7. Set the air pressure on the spoke valve. 8. Open the black valve near the above on engine. 9. Open large wheel on horn tank. 10. When pressure is approximately 45 pounds, start the coda, and away the foghorn should go. Tater Lighthouse was built from the start as an automatic station, so never manned and never planned to be manned. It was run originally from Penzance Depot, and then it was eventually sent along to be operated from the Harwich Control Centre in Essex. I went on board on my day off from the Lizard Lighthouse along with a crew of maintenance people. We drove down this little lane in our depot van. As we were getting out of the van, we were confronted by some irate person over the wall of his property. He reckoned he was some famous author, but I've probably forgotten his name. And we were disturbing his work. I suppose in life we all meet people like that, who think they're way above their station. So if Trinity House, who has perfect legal and proper right of way in these places, get hassled, then you can imagine what you will get if you turn up in your car. So this place is viewing from the southwest coastal path only when you're on foot or from a boat trip. In fact, if you're going to the Scilly Isles by boat on this Cylonian ship, then it passes quite close to Tater.
I went to the Wolf, made PK the Wolf. The family lived in the Lizard then, Lizard Light, so we had one of the spare cottages, the Lizard. The PK the Eddystone had one of the cottages there, and the PK the Wolf had another one. After that, Plymouth Breakwater, and then Pendine, then St Catherine's, and then retired.
Can you tell me all about the Wolf?
The Wolf? Well, I'm glad I went there. It's quite an experience to go to a place like that, you know, because I don't think there's anything quite like it. We had quite a lot of bad weather when I was there. I did one turn where we were over 4 weeks overdue, so I was there about just over the 3 months, you know.
This is when you should have done 2 months on, 1 month off.
It was 2 months on, 1 month off then. Yeah,
and you did 3.
So I did 3 months, just over 3 months, that's right.
What was that like?
Well, you just settled down and got used to it, you know. And that was it.
How about food for that?
Food, well, it was mostly tin stuff, you know, mostly tin food. You got fed up with the sight of a tin opener after a while, but it was all the usual things had gone, you know, so you just managed on the tin stuff. Because they kept more reserve provisions on a place like the Wolf than they did on the usual rock lights. It was, you know, you had things like yeast and things like that, you know, you could delve into after you've been a week overdue.
So you did all your own baking as well as cooking?
Oh yes, yeah.
So what, did you have like a baking day, just doing bread and stuff?
did his own cooking. You know, you had to cook for the day, but you provided your food, but you baked your own bread. That was your own. Usually did when you were cooked for the day, sort of thing. You know.
And that you had to learn rather than get taught.
Oh, yes, you learnt. I don't quite know how it managed really, because when I first went to rock stations, I really hadn't a clue what to order, and it was a keeper, sort of keeper on one of the keepers on shore, which you reported to from one of the other rock lights down in South Wales, you know, and he told me more or less everything I should order, and you just went to the butcher and told him what you wanted, and the grocer, and he said all right, and that was it. And you said, because you didn't know how long you were going for, and somebody, when you were going to stay another month, like I said, we went from Skogum, South Bishopsmore back to Skogum, the grocer just sent off another month's stores, you know, which you had to pay for yourself, of course, as you know, don't you? But they trusted you in those days.
Yeah.
They gave you credit. The same down in Swansea when it was usually 3 months down there. That was Lundy North, Lundy South and Platholmes. That was another 3 stations that you did, but you went out from Swansea then, and well, that wasn't a bad trip though. Lundy wasn't bad.
Yeah, nice island.
Hey, you can sort of go up and have a drink now and again. Yeah.
So on the wharf, you got all your grub to go out there with.
That's right.
How did you store it? Was it in barrels, in boxes, or?
Yes. You had these crates you store them in, and then the end of the next month, the grocer would send down your stores again, you know, and it'd come off. Because that was, it wasn't too bad then after the war having fridges, but before the war, because there were no fridges on rock stations, you just had to manage as best you could without a fridge. So that at the end of the month, the butter was getting a bit. You had to put jam on the bread, and the bacon was getting a bit. What's the name? And the eggs used to stick to the shells, you know, after 4 or 5 weeks. And
they didn't hatch out on you.
one unusual. Several places had them. We used to do it on the caskets, and we had. Stone jars, the old-fashioned, I don't know if you remember them, old-fashioned marmalade jars, they were sort of stone jars, do you remember them? Have you ever seen them?
No.
And so we used to cut up the meat, put it in these jars, put the jars in the oven and cook the meat, and then seal them with boiling dripping. And the meat would keep for ages and ages. Lovely. You could make stews like that. When you needed it, you would scoop the dripping off the top and turn the meat that was perfectly keep for months like that.
And this was in the days before the
fridges. That's right. Yeah.
So all that fat you ate never done you any harm by the sound.
Well, you didn't eat the dripping.
That just preserved it.
No, you just the fat would go on the top of the and just go solid. You see. Yeah.
Milk and stuff like that, was that tin milk?
Tin milk, yeah, Nestle's milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nestle's condensed milk. Each had their own tin, you know, tin of milk. Yeah.
How about your comrades out there? Was there more sort of camaraderie in those days?
Where? On the rocks?
Yeah.
Very good. I can honestly say that I was never involved or heard two keepers quarrelling. It was, I did many years on the rock lights, around here, Needles, Nab, Beachy Head, and you automatically kept off subjects which might, religion was, I didn't know what the others' religion were, what they, or their politics. Well, only one man I knew his politics, but the others I didn't know whether they voted Labour or Conservative, and never asked, and I never asked what, which church they went to or anything, and they never asked me, which was you did that, or it was automatic, I think. It was never discussed. Some of the things you didn't discuss, you know.
You didn't have TV then, I take it?
Not before the war, no.
So, what was it, wireless?
We had a radio.
And I suppose you just had a battery for the wireless, was it?
Yeah.
Now how about the lighting in the tower, if it was...
Well, the Wolf, we had electric light there.
Yeah, running off the engine.
Running off the engines, yeah.
Wolf, that was a nice, I liked the Wolf, I'll be quite honest. It's a nice, easy little station to run, and well, at least that was my impression of it. And you had the nice landing there, you know, a fair old length on that. So you could run about when you were landing or going ashore, like bringing coal and water and that sort of thing about. It was quite a nice station, that one. Lonely, and of course you would get, you know, some bad weather up there. You never knew when you would get off. We'd be due to go, but it could be a week, 2 there, sometimes 3 weeks, you know, with the bad weather.
So it was boat reliefs there on the winch.
Yes, that's right. You'd have to rig up first there. Used to come down, bring all the stuff down from the lighthouse, put like a mast up, you know, and a derrick and block and tackle and that, get all that rigged up, little winch, hand, you know, get everything ready, and away you'd go as soon as the boat came. Like, went bad, of course you get ducked coming in. You know, it's only natural. There used to be a swell, you know, but I found it a lovely little station. I like the Wolf. You could fish there. And the peak here there, he used to have the kite there, Robbie Robinson. He used to have a little kite and the feathers on the end of it. And out he'd go on the landing on the lighthouse itself, up in the gallery there. And out would go the kite. And then he'd be in the kitchen. And he'd shout out, coming up, like, you know. And there'd be these fish, like, right up to the window there out, and then you'd pull the line in, drop them in the sink, unhook, see, out the window again, and just shout, yeah, okay. And away you'd go again, fly the kite out, like, you know, and then land it in the water. And then he'd be pulling, and just to get a bit of lift on the kite so that the feathers would be going in the water, you know.
Yeah.
And they'd be like that. Oh, I've been no time at all. You'd have a couple of dozen fish. Yeah, right into the kitchen window. It was great fun. And there was another keeper, Dave Knight. He used to buy the fresh pilchard, you know, in Penzance, and bring his rod. And there was a couple of holes there that you could cast into. If you could cast into them, he used to catch some beautiful bream in there, lovely pink, you know. And that would be a nice meal. Dave went about, and John Sheppy. He was a baker before he came, so he was all right. He'd make nice bread and that, you know, cakes. Well, we lived well there.
The storms on the Wolf, you said they broke a window or something?
Oh, that was, yeah, it was a bad one there. The whole place was shaking, yeah. Cracked the glass up in the lamp room, you know. They wouldn't have it in Penzance there. Oh, no, you know. But it was solid. You see it green there, really right up, you know, past, like, where you lived, your little living room and that. And we were in there, and you'd see the windows full there. Green, you know, solid green there. That was a bad night.
Was that scary?
It was a bit, but then again, in a way, you know, Well, scary when you think of it now, I suppose, and at the time, the actual check-in, you know, it was something new, or new to me. But when you looked at the drawings and things of these lighthouses, the way they'd been built and dovetailed, you know, the granite and that, it take an awful lot, you know, to really shift them.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the Torrey Canyon there when she ran aground. And in the lamp room when the aeroplanes were coming in, you know, the jets with the napalm here trying to burn it. But that was quite a kerfuffle then. There, you could see it. Oh, there was an awful lot of coming and going and messages flying around. Of course, there was an awful stink, you know, from the oil itself. Because it came right round the lighthouse, like, you know, round the wolf there. You couldn't open the window very well. With this sulphur, you know, in the air all the time. Like, but that was an experience.
Well, the wolf wasn't all that comfortable. It was it was my first winter there. Actually, was extremely cold, and we had gas, Calagas heating there. Calagas stove, and in the bedroom there, where the bunks were, we had a sort of a Calagas blower with a long tube in it, which you had to, before you went to bed, you put that in underneath the clothes, and you warmed up your bedclothes, and it was. There wasn't a lot of room, as I say, anywhere really, because it had the being a tower rock, of course, everything was a bit cramped. The thing was, in the lantern itself, it only had a small lens, because they took out the old lens, I believe, and this was a nice small lens, and you could actually sit in the lantern during the daytime. And we brought up an armchair there, and it was you could see, you had a wonderful view during the daytime, especially on a nice day. The seas, of course, obviously used to come right over the wolf. That hit the base of the rock and come right over the top, see, a lot of the time. And the tower would shake as well with the force of the sea. And then as the sea got up past the bedroom window, your ears would go pop. There's a sort of a vacuum created. And you had to be careful when you went out on the gallery at night time, perhaps, and you couldn't see actually what was happening. If you went out to take your weather, you'd open the gallery door, and you'd probably see a wave shooting way up past you. You see, so you didn't go any further than that.
And what height was that?
Well, it would be about, it's supposed to be about perhaps 150 feet high, perhaps, or something like that. And but of course, in the daytime, you actually saw what was happening, you know, and you could judge where, you could judge your time to go out on the gallery or up onto the helicopter pad. That was again, that was right on top of the lighthouse, and you could sunbathe up there on a glorious day, or have a read, or some of the lads, one or two of the lads, used to run around the pad for exercise, round and round.
This pad, did you lose many bits of it during storms?
Yes, when, as I said, these waves used to come up, they'd go straight up, and the helipad itself, part of the helipad, was actually constructed in such a way that it was in pieces. The gratings were in about perhaps uh, 2 foot by 1, something like that, or maybe 3 foot by 2 or something like that, pieces, so that, and they were held together, they were held in by aluminium pins, so that when the seas came up, really came up and hit the bottom, one of these might break off to shear the aluminium pin, and a piece of the pad would just fall off, to either just lift maybe if you were lucky, or to go completely over the side. If it only just lifted, you went round the next day with a lump hammer, and you just hammered them all down again. But apparently after I left there, the helicopter had some, there was quite a bad storm down there, and the helicopter went out with replacement pieces, and they couldn't actually land on the pad. They had to hover about a foot or 2 above the pad while somebody jumped down and from the helicopter and started putting these pieces back into place again, because the helicopter didn't have any room to put its wheels, its skids down.
You had boat reliefs there as well, didn't you?
We did have, one boat relief there made by local boat. In actual fact, we rigged the landing there on a very quiet day, and we had a mechanic who'd been with us for a couple of weeks, and he was going ashore, and this local boat came out, and the helicopter wasn't available at that particular time, and the local boat did it and managed to get him off. It was a bit hairy because he had to jump from the steps onto the rubber dinghy, and if he'd missed his footing, of course, obviously he'd have gone. But and then they also had some stuff to land to us as well, and we picked it all up. We pulled it all in by hand winch. You see, it took us about perhaps about 20 minutes to rig the winch, on the landing. When the ship used to do a regular landing on the Wolf, the lads were quite adept at lowering all this gear and fitting it all up and so forth. They used to do it in so many minutes, you see, but of course we weren't all that used to it, because it was all helicopter with us, and it took us about 20 minutes there to rig it all up and get it all sorted out. And that was the one time, but the actual none of the Trinity ships actually went did a relief there while I was there, since the helicopter came along. They always went past, sort of thing, and left the reliefs, things like that, to the helicopter.
Can you remember how it was rigged?
Now then, we had, of course, the Samson post was a permanent feature on the landing, and then we had to, you had a long boom then that you had up in the tower, that you stored up in the tower, and there were all these pulleys and ropes, sort of thing, and you attached the boom to the Samson post, and you got your various shackles, your various blocks, and tied them up, hooked them on, and so forth. And then, of course, you had to put the drum on and the handles and all that sort of thing. And as I say, it took between the two of you It took quite a while to sort it all out. You see, especially if it wasn't a very nice landing. There. If there was a little bit of a slop there, you see, because you had to do it, of course, obviously at low water. And even low water, then sometimes you still got it slopped over the landing. So you had to keep a very close eye on it, on the conditions. Then you had you threw a line then to the boat, which you had tied onto onto the hook on the end of the boom, and the boat pulled in the hook, and they attached something onto the hook, and then you pulled it. You hand winched it from the boat in. You see, of course, obviously it would might float in the water, of course, if the people in the boat didn't keep it fairly taut. But they had to leave enough slack in it for you to be able to wind it in.
So you winched from the boat to the landing.
Yes.
How did you get it from the landing up into the lighthouse?
And then we got it. Then we had an electric winch then in the what we call the winch room, and we got that up. We got it up there. You see, we got it up into the winch room, and then sorted it out from there. You see.
So it's quite a sort of rigmarole for getting stuff on.
Oh yes, it was indeed. As a matter, and any big stuff that came by helicopter, of course. Then I remember one fridge freezer we had to lower it over. The helicopter brought it out, and we had to lower it over the side with rope over the edge of the helipad, and drop it down on the outside of the tower, right onto the winchroom door, and then pull it in the winchroom door, because no way could we get it down the hatches in the helipad. We had two hatches, I think. Was it 2 hatches or 3 in the helipad, I think, and they were only just enough, more or less, to get small stuff down, or little boxes, and of course personnel.
You were saying once about some dolphins around the wall.
Oh yes, and the wolf, yeah. Looked out one day, and there were these groups of dolphins going past, and more or less they kept going past all day. It was absolutely amazing. There were groups of them, as if they were going somewhere to a function or something, and about perhaps maybe a dozen or so in each group, or whatever, maybe half a dozen, and they were going past, but more or less all day they were going all in the same direction. And then 1 or 2 days later, we saw all around the Wolf, the dolphins. They were all gathered all around the Wolf, actually, all just as if they were waiting for something, and there were hundreds of them there, and they were just seemed to be playing, just breaking the surface and going down again, and they were all in a circle all around the Wolf, and then they just all of a sudden they disappeared. They were all gone.
The middle bunk that I'm in, down one wall is some pipes coming from up above, and that's for the fuel and water. When they store the lighthouse, as it were, they drop pillar tanks on the heli deck above, and then gravity fed it down to the tanks. So at the foot of my bed, about a foot from the end, there's a little section cut out of the mattress so the pipes can go through, which is different, to say the least. I'll just close the bedroom door a bit so I can hear myself speak. Another thing about this bunk, or these bunks, my one is same as the others, the middle one here, and it's only about 6 foot long. I'm 5'5.5" and fit it quite well, but I hate to think what a ginormous keeper would fit in there like. You have to actually sleep like a banana. That's why I think they were named banana bunks. Now, there's about a force 7-8 going on outside at the moment. It's been building all night, and now we've got these great big Atlantic swells coming in from the southwest. And about 3 o'clock this morning, 3 to half past, I was awoken by some great big thumps down below. When the waves hit this place, it really cracks. It's quite loud, and then some cracks louder than others. And what you would think the louder crack would be the biggest shake of the building, but that hasn't been the case. The biggest cracks seem to be not shake so much, but the ones that are just about half the volume in noise. Laying in bed this morning, sort of being shaken quite visibly, and all I can liken it to was when I was in the Navy in a aircraft carrier going through the side of a hurricane, and the ship was really grinding into these waves, and as it dug in and began to shake itself loose from the wave to ride up for the next one, it sent this sort of shake or a tremor right through the whole ship. And that's what it's like, or was like, laying in bed this morning, being shaken by these waves. Quite an experience. And it looks like the waves have built up, so it should be even more spectacular. And the other thing was, I got up about 5 to go downstairs because I realised one of the shutters weren't shut on the storm shutters in the kitchen, and the floor was covered in water, so I mopped that up. In fact, I was getting waves smashing against the storm shutters on my bedroom window here. And also when I got up this morning, I went up to have a look outside, and there was water in the service room, which is the next level up on the floor. So that must have come from the floor above and sort of leaked down the steps. So it's either the waves or the spray of it.